When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject, Jolene. User, J0J0123. Posted, August 19th, 1998.
They say the smell is what gets you first. Like roadkill that's been roasting for 3 days in August heat, only wetter. The kind of stench that clings to your skin and makes your teeth itch. I didn't come looking for it. I was just trying to get out of the damn house. My name's Jolene. Yes, like this song. I was an army mechanic back in the day. Kept the motor pool alive through 2 deployments and a budget held together with duct tape and prayer. Now, I work at a garage in Allen Ridge, Kentucky. Population, maybe 300 if you count the dogs. I've got a husband, Roy, and 2 girls, one in Little League and the other still teething. Life's good in that predictable way where you don't notice you're grateful till something tries to tear it up. It was Roy's idea that I'd take a weekend. Said I'd been working too hard, losing sleep, getting twitchy over every little noise. He was right. I love him for that. He always knows when I need to step away before I turn into something mean. So I packed my old army bag, kissed my girls goodbye, and pointed my pickup south toward nowhere in particular. I didn't have a map, just a cooler of chili cheese dogs, a couple Willie Nelson cassettes, and the kind of ache that only open road can fix. By the second day, I wound my way down to some forgotten part of western Tennessee. Dirt roads so narrow the trees hugged your mirrors. It was dusk when I got the flat. I pulled over, cursed under my breath, and got out the spare, but I didn't have a jack. Roy had taken it out the last time we hauled firewood and forgot to put it back. That's when I saw the lights. Headlamps bouncing and dipping over the rise behind me. A beat-up Ford rattled up, coughing diesel smoke. Out stepped a man old enough to have seen 2 wars, hunched and wiry with a red cap pulled low over white hair. He said he had a jack, said he lived close by, just past the next clearing. Said if I followed him, it'd get me squared away and back on the road. Now, I know better. I really do, but it was getting dark and I was tired and something about him didn't set off my alarms. Not then, anyway. He reminded me of my papa, that same slow drawl and the way he moved like his knees were made of gravel. So I followed him. We drove maybe 5 minutes. I remember thinking it was awful quiet. No birds, no frogs, not even the buzz of bugs in the weeds. His place was a ramshackle thing tucked behind a stand of cedar trees, surrounded by rows of old trucks that looked like they'd been driven there to die. He waved me inside the garage and said the jack was in the back, and God help me, I went in. The floor was slick, not with oil, but something thicker, black and glistening like tar left out in the sun. I slipped once and caught myself on a workbench covered in tools, all gleaming clean like they'd never been used. But they had. The smell told me that much. That rotting meat smell wasn't coming from outside. I should have left right then, but something on the far wall caught my eye, a tarp pinned up over what looked like a walk-in freezer door. Curiosity is a hell of a drug. I walked toward it, pulled back a corner, and found what I can only describe as a skin. But not leather, not animal hide. Human. Pale and stretched taut over a wooden frame like a dying deer pelt. And the face, Jesus, the face, lips frozen in a scream, eyelids cut away to expose blank sockets. And that's when I heard the latch click behind me. I turned slow, real slow, and there he was. Not old anymore. Standing straight, skin pulled too tight across his skull, smiling wide like he'd won a prize. He did not speak, just raised one of those shining tools and stepped forward. I grabbed the first thing I could, a rusted wrench, and swung with everything I had. I caught him across the jaw, bone cracked like dry wood, and he went down. I didn't wait. I ran out the door, through the dirt yard, back into my truck, tires spinning mud, engine growling like a caged dog. He didn't follow. Not then. I drove all night. Busted tire be damned, and I didn't stop until the sun rose behind a diner sign in Clinton. I walked in, shaking, covered in filth, and told the cook I'd hit a deer. He gave me coffee and a rag to wipe my hands. I didn't say a word about what I'd seen. Would you? Back home, I hugged my girls like I ain't seen them in years, and Roy asked how the weekend went. I said the roads were rough, but the quiet did me good. I never told him what happened. Never told anybody, but sometimes when I'm up late in the garage, I think about that place. The stink, the tools, that frozen face. I think about how many people never made it back out, and I wonder sometimes if he's still out there driving his beat-up Ford, waiting for someone else to break down on the side of the road. And I pray it's never you.
Subject, the Turnoff. User, SM00L1. Posted, July 11th, 1999.
I don't know if I'll make it through the night, so I'm writing this down. The doctor said the clot was small, but I saw the look in his eyes. I know the score. And they've got me wired up in a bed here in Fort Worth with nothing but time and guilt on my hands. I keep seeing my brother's face, Danny, the kid with the busted leg and the silver star, the smartass who could never sit still. I left him behind, and I've been trying to explain that to myself ever since. It was summer of '71, and Danny had just gotten discharged after catching shrapnel in Da Nang. They'd patched him up as best they could, gave him a cane and a bottle of pills, and sent him home with a limp and a head full of shit he wouldn't talk about. I flew out to meet him in San Francisco, and we bought a used Chevelle with bad shocks and a good engine. Plan was to drive cross-country, see the country like we used to talk about when we were kids. Just two brothers, one beat-up car, and a stack of Creedence tapes. We'd made it halfway. Kansas was flat and endless, just telephone poles and wheat fields and old roads that felt like they were unraveling under the weight of time. I was getting drowsy behind the wheel, fighting to keep the line straight when we saw the turnoff. There was no town name, just a faded green sign with a mile marker and a crooked arrow. We figured we'd stop for the night, get a shower, some food, maybe watch Johnny Carson in a cheap motel. What we found instead, though, God, I wish I had just kept driving. It was called the Prairie Inn, though the N had long since flickered out on the sign. It was a low, L-shaped building made of stucco and rotted wood, and it had a Coke machine out front that buzzed like a wasp nest. There were only 2 cars in the lot, one with a tarp half pulled over it and the other with grass growing up through the wheel wells. I should have known then. Danny shrugged and said, "Place looks like shit, but I bet the AC works." He always did have that grin, like the world was a joke only he understood. I paid the old woman at the desk, pale, dry hands like paper. She didn't smile, didn't even ask for ID, just handed me the key and slid a tiny bell across the counter. "If you need help," she said, her voice like a fan bell, "ring once." The room smelled like bleach and wet carpet. The beds were soft in the middle and stiff on the edges. Danny took a bath and came out in his boxers, hair wet, and lay down without saying much. I was brushing my teeth when I heard the knock. Not on the door, on the window. I stepped out of the bathroom, toothbrush still in hand, and saw the shape behind the curtain. Human-sized, too still, the kind of still that put your guts on edge. I called out, "We're good, man, wrong room," but no answer. Then the knock came again, slow even. I looked at Danny. He was staring at the window now, his body coiled. "That ain't right," he said. Then came the scrape. Nails, maybe, or bone, dragging along the glass like someone trying to draw blood from the air itself. I grabbed my pocket knife. Danny pulled his sidearm out of his duffel. He'd kept it even though they told him not to. "You open that curtain," he said. "You better be ready." Well, I did, and I wish I had. There was a man there, or something that used to be one, face gray, mouth slack, eyes, Jesus, those eyes, they were empty like a drought. He didn't lurch or groan like a zombie in the movies. He just stood there staring like he was waiting for something, and then he moved. Fast. The glass spiderwebbed, and before I could react, he was pounding on it, both hands. Then more shadows behind him. 2, 3, 5. "They're coming," Danny said, voice flat, like he was back in the jungle. I shoved the dresser in front of the door. Danny opened the drawer, took the Gideon's Bible, and threw it out of the way. Underneath, he found a tire iron. "We're not dying here," he said. The window shattered. They poured in like a wave of rot. No screaming, no talking, just that awful smell. Sickly, sweet, like meat left too long in the sun. We fought, God help me, we fought. Danny shot 2 in the chest, but they didn't stop. You had to go for the head, the neck. I stabbed 1 in the eye and it didn't even flinch until I twisted the blade. Danny swung wild with the iron, got 1 down, but another grabbed his leg. He yelled. I tried to pull him free. Another one bit my arm. I still have the scar to this day, a half moon of shame, and I kicked that fucker until it let go. Blood was everywhere, and I couldn't breathe. The door was half off its hinges. Danny was dragging himself backward, bleeding from the stomach. "Go," he yelled. "I'll hold him. Go." I said no. I told him we'd get out together. I told him I'd carry him, but the look in his eyes stopped me. He knew. "They'll follow you," he asserted. "Don't you dare give them both of us." I still see his hand, slick with blood, pushing me toward the door. I ran. I made it to the car, tore out of that parking lot like hell was behind me, and I don't remember how long I drove, but at some point I pulled over and threw up all over the gravel. Not a single cop I told believed me, and not a single paper reported it. When I went back weeks later with a sheriff from the next county over, the Prairie Inn was just gone. Not closed, gone. It was just an empty lot, no sign, no building, just some old concrete posts and that Coke machine lying on its side in the dirt. I've thought about that day every single one since, about whether it was real, about whether I could have saved my brother, and I see those gray eyes still in my sleep. Every night I hear the knock on the window, but most of all, I hear Danny's voice. Don't give them both of us. So now I'm here, tubes in my arms, beeping monitors counting down the seconds. I don't know if there's a heaven or hell, don't know if I'll see my brother again, but I hope so. And if I do, I'll finally get to say what I couldn't that night. I'm sorry, I'm so damn sorry.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.